So then I'm going to talk about commitment, but first I'm going to read you a Gemara. So on Hedron Daf Lamed Zayin with Aleph. Gemara, I'll skip around a little bit. It says, Nivra Hadam Yechidi, man was created by himself. There's several lessons which the Gemara learns from the fact that man was created by himself. One of them is B'nei Shalom Abriot, is because of peace among people. Shelo Yamar Adam L'Chaveiro, so one person shouldn't tell his friend, Abba Gadol Me'avicha, my father is greater than your father. It also explains the greatness of Hashem. A person can make with a single mold same coin over and over again. He makes the exact same model. Every single person is made in the same mold as Adam HaRishon. And yet, even though every person is made out of the same chotam, the same mold, the same signet as Adam HaRishon, no person is similar to anyone else. Everyone is different physically, everyone is different spiritually, everyone's different mentally, everyone's different emotionally. Therefore, every person in the world must say, the world was created for me. The world was created specifically for me. I'm mentioning this now, which has nothing to do with what I'm talking about tonight, for a very specific reason, which is that I understand that at times people in the yeshiva sometimes are a bunch of racists and say things which are inappropriate and funny, which they insult other people from different racial or ethnic backgrounds. And even though they're not talking about anyone necessarily in particular, but rather making fun of any given ethnic group, the Gemara says that Hashem created one person to start the world so that such behavior is fundamentally, theologically inadmissible. And should somebody start making jokes about somebody else, saying a certain racial group or otherwise, by implication is inferior, they're doing something which is extremely wrong, extremely coarse and crass, and frankly against the Gemara. I do not know who is saying racist jokes. I hope it's not you, whoever you are. But if it is you, stop it now. There will not be any more racism or terms which are racist in the yeshiva. Full stop. Not one more. Not today, not tomorrow. If it happens again, there will be extremely serious consequences. This is a disgusting way of behaving, and I will not have it here. Is that understood? Thank you. I want to talk about a different kind of commitment, though. I couldn't let that go without saying something. So I'm saying that's what that was about. That's not what the Sikha is about. We're talking about commitment tonight. Commitment can come in many different forms. I'm going to speak about a certain type of commitment, which was demonstrated about 75 years ago, 1938, in November, when the Cohen family lived in Berlin. The Cohen family living in Berlin had an upstairs neighbor who warned them one day in 1938 that they had heard there was going to be a very serious riot in the street against the Jews, and they should get out of town, or at least go somewhere a little bit safer than the middle of town where they lived in Berlin. And although the Cohen family said to their neighbors, we hear rumors all the time, the Nazis are in power, or there's always stuff going on, the upstairs neighbor said, no, we have it on good authority, this one's going to be different. So the Cohen family decided, despite their lack of concern because they heard about these things all the time, they said, okay, we're going to go to the other side of town. The father, David Cohen, said, we're going to go to my in-law's house. They live not more than a 20-minute walk away, but there aren't many Jews there, so it's a less dangerous part of town. I'll go over there, and their daughter, Esther Cohen, said, do you mind if I come in a little bit? I'll come in about an hour. All of her books were at home. She wanted to finish her homework. Parents said, no problem. They knew she was responsible. Outside, everything seemed fine. Meet us there in an hour. So the family left to go to the mother's parents' house, grandparents' house. And Esther stayed home. And after about 20 minutes, she heard this great sound outside, the sound of screaming, people yelling, kill the Jews! Destroy them! She looked out the window, and she saw a mob racing through the streets, crashing down any Jewish-owned business, breaking down and burning down the shuls. The Gestapo had already told the police department not to intervene. They told the fire department only to intervene to make sure that the fires that were being set to the shuls would not spread to non-Jewish property, but let the shuls burn. This, of course, was Kristallnacht, which many people say is the real beginning of the Holocaust, the Shoah. And Esther Cohen looked out the window and didn't know what to do. She saw this mob. They were going house to house, building to building, trying to find Jews, dragging them out into the streets, and she didn't know what she was going to do. She realized, however, that she'd been told many times that she looked German. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, light skin. She decided she could use this to her advantage. She'd know what to do. So she took out her braids, put her hair down straight the way that, I guess, German girls in that time used to do. And after that, she decided to fix her blouse and her jacket to look like the non-Jewish girls, to dress the way they did in that society. So she unbuttoned her top, buttoned her top 2 buttons, moved her jacket however she had to, and she started walking outside. She figured what she would do is now looking Aryan, looking German, she could probably sort of mesh into the group. No one would know the difference. And as she was walking down the stairs of her apartment building, she suddenly remembered something her mother always told her. That a person should be tsanua even within the 4 walls of her own home. Should be ashamed even within the 4 walls of your own home. She looked down and realized, having unbuttoned her top 1 or 2 buttons, despite the danger, she could not go out there untsanua. She just couldn't do it. So she left her hair down the way she had done it, and that's how much she buttoned up to the top. Figured she'd set the hill and hope for the best. She walked out and walked in the middle of the mob, figuring if she walked in the middle of the mob, no one would ever dream she were actually Jewish walking in the middle of this mob. After 10 minutes, she had gotten through the mob, and the rest of the way she just ran all the way to her grandparents' house. And as she arrived at her grandparents' house, she saw her parents there, and she was so relieved to see them. She hadn't known if they'd made it. She fell into her mother's lap, cried, and told her the story, and said, I was about to go outside, my button unbuttoned, and I remember what you always said about tznius, and how important it is. And I buttoned it again. And Mrs. Cohen said to her, you realize that your tznius saved your life. She looked down and realized she was wearing a Magen David necklace. She completely forgot about it. Had she unbuttoned her top button, she was walking through the streets of Kristallnacht with a big Magen David around her neck. She realized that tznius. It's a very important thing. Tznius in that case. Miraculously, luckily, it's not for me to decide, but it saved her life. And the laws of tznius for a girl largely relate to the way a girl should dress. Because frankly, the way a girl relates to guys is fundamentally different mentally, as you all know, than the way a guy relates to a girl. It's just different way of saying things. To put it in less charitable terms, women are women, and guys are behemoths. Okay? And tznius for guys is not about hemlines, obviously. It's about trying to rein in this behemoth. And this matters to everybody. So Rashi, Parsha Kedoshim, his translation of the phrase Kedoshim to you, be holy, is, I quote, Havu Prushim min harash min avera. Separate yourself from sexual license and from sin. Shekol makom shetam oseh geder erba. Anytime you see a fence blocking you from erba, atam oseh kedusha. You find holiness. Rashi's saying that kedusha, being a holy person, being a sanctified person, which is not just a nice idea, but kedoshim to it is a mitzvah, is a chiyuv. Does not mean not to just violate arayos, to violate sexual laws, but it actually means you have to avoid anything leading to such violation. That's the essence of tznius for a guy. Avoiding a situation that leads to arayos doesn't just mean not to do the arayos, it means avoiding a situation that leads to it. I see what goes on with Facebook, with guys who've been in every yeshiva, in this yeshiva, currently, in the past, everything else. Sometimes it's an embarrassment to see what pictures people post. In two ways. First of all, it's a little bit embarrassing that people who are yeshiva bachrim, and I'm talking not about here particularly, I'm talking about in the world, yeshiva bachrim just have decided that of the 613 mitzvahs, most of them are okay. But there are some involving girls that are not so okay. And those are the mitzvahs that we've decided really, with all due respect, God, you shouldn't have put in the Torah because I don't really like them very much. And therefore I'm going to violate them with impunity. That's problem number one. But the second problem is that if a person's going to go to a treif restaurant, I would hope that a person in yeshiva would not post it to Facebook. All right? Don't be proud of it. If a person sleeps in a minyan, you can put a picture of it, hey, here's me at 9 o'clock, still sleeping in. You can do, no. And yet, yeshiva bacher seems to have no problem. Me and the girls hanging out together, doing things which are 100% against halacha midoraisa, no problem. No problem. Proud of it. How can people just forget one of the Torah's basic commands? Now, I understand. I shouldn't say how it can happen. It's easy to understand how it happens. You know why? Because we live in a crazy society. We live in an insane society nowadays. You know, our culture is whacked out, legamre. There's no escaping it. I mean, you can't go to a movie, you can't watch a television, you can't open the computer, you can't walk down the street, you can't watch a billboard, you can't get on a bus. Everything is utterly, the level of tznius in the world today is a level which is beyond anything imaginable. Just the level of anything goes. And the problem is this. We live in a nutty world. It's a crazy, messed up Western world. Because the Western world has two statements which are completely contradictory, and yet at the same time, they're both like Kadosh Kadashim. The first one is that a woman is equal to a man and therefore is entitled to equal pay, equal rights, and I believe that's true. Of course. Second of all, a woman has the right to walk down the street dressed like a complete prostitute, and that's totally cool. We're not supposed to treat them as objects. Choose. Are they objects or are they people? If they're people, treat yourself like people. If you're an object, treat yourself like an object. But don't demand equal rights if you're treating yourself like an object. You say, don't you dare look at me like that. I said, well, don't you dare what? Like, what are you thinking? You're provocative. I'm not saying that women should be treated like objects if they do that. But we live in a society where both things are celebrated. How many 50-year-olds are there on a television show? Women? No, you don't find them. 40? Tough. 30? Getting kind of old. Seriously, have you ever these things going on in Hollywood nowadays? About giving women, like how it's a big, big issue. That, you know, they don't want to have any women who are not extremely hot in any show. Any movie. They can't get work. A guy who's 40, 50, yeah, he can get a job. A girl who was an actor when she was 40, when she was 30 years old, forget it. She's over. She's a hag. She's finished with. She's done. Our culture is predicated on treating women like objects, which is disgusting. At the same time, our culture is predicated on giving women equal rights. This is great, but they're both equal parts of our culture. Choose. Okay, I'm choosing. Women have equal rights to men. They should not be treated as objects. And yet we as guys, we're behemoths. We treat them like objects, and the culture celebrates that. It just says, let's do that. Of course, treat them like objects. And this is one area where Torah values are completely and absolutely different from Western values. Women are not objects. This week I was talking to Mr. Yisharim in the mornings. Remember how the Olam Hazeh the Ramchal is compared to night? And one of the ways he says Olam Hazeh is compared to night is because in nighttime, sometimes it's dark, you can't see a thing. But he says even worse is that it's kind of dark, and you can see a little bit, but a tree looks like a human being looks like a tree, and you can't tell which is which. And Mr. Yisharim is saying that's Olam Hazeh, where something which we think is good actually looks evil, and something which the Torah says is evil actually looks good, and so on and so forth. And this is completely backwards. We need the Torah to guide us and tell us. The Torah says women are not objects. Women are people. And treating like objects is an isser. Women treating themselves like objects is an isser. And certainly guys treating them like objects is an isser. You know, I was reading something last night. So I was just having to look at something. Something about Shagar Zatzal. There's Parish on Rabbi Nachman's Likutei Moharan. The very first piece he has in here. He says that the chen of Klal Yisrael has gone in galus, the beauty of Klal Yisrael, the sense of graciousness. He says the kavod of Klal Yisrael is in exile with the Goyim. And Rav Shagar, in explaining what Rabbi Nachman means in saying that kavod is in exile among the Goyim, he says, among other things, galuta kavod shel amot haolam, mashmuta, the idea of the galut, of the exile of honor, to the non-Jews have honor and we don't. What does it mean? That the way of life and the culture of non-Jews is seen by the world as the standard way, the way things should be. Does not need to be justified. Western culture is the way things that are normal. Torah is abnormal. Our way requires justification. So מציאות בעולם הדתי היהודי הוא חלק ממגוון של אופציות חיים והוא אינו נתפס לא על ידי הסיפור היהודי עצמו ולא על ידי הרשות בכללותה כצורת החיים המרכזית והמשמעותית ביותר כמובן מאליו. The fact that Jewish religion, Torah living, is an option among many, many options out there and is not seen by the world or even by Jews as the center, greatest way of living is exactly what it means that it's in galus. That's what we're talking about over here. It's all in galus. The way of life where women are objects is normal, and the way we see things that women are seen not objects is not normal. We have to be very, very much on our guard. We have to be very, very careful not to be sucked into the world of saying, no, we can treat women as objects. No one thinks like that. Everyone thinks the other thing. No, I'm treating women, I'm respecting her. Yeah, respecting her. Speaking of respecting women before. Dreaming about her is not respecting her. Okay? Yirmiyahu Paragimel Pasuk Kavbet said, Shuvim Banim Shovevim. Return, O backsliding children, Shovevim. And there's an idea, massive Kabbalah say, Rizal and others, that the parsha from Shmot until Mishpatim, we're in a leap year Shmot, until Tetzaveh, are called Shovevim, backsliding. Shovevim, the abbreviation of Shmot Va'era, Bo, B'Shalach, Yitro, Mishpatim, and Shovevim. In a leap year it's called Shovevim Tat, because Truma Tetzaveh is added. It's called Shovevim Tat. The 8 weeks from Shmot until Tetzaveh, the Kabbalim say are called this, and the righteous people actually fast on every Thursday. Every Thursday of Shovevim Tat. Why? Because, for various Kabbalistic reasons, these 8 weeks are particularly designed, say the Kabbalists, they're misugal, they're especially appropriate for working on tikkun habrit. Tikkun habrit means fixing ourselves sexually. You will see in many places, in many neighborhoods, Ramat Beit Shemesh among them, I assume Beit Shemesh as well, some of the shuls will have up a schedule for the next 8 weeks, or now 7 weeks from Vayera already, of special shiurim on Taras Mishpacha. Now's the time to learn Hilchos Taras Mishpacha, the laws of needed between a husband and a wife. There's 2 chazar on that. They do it every year during Shovevim or in a sleep year Shovevim Tat. And because Shovevim is an annual time where communities review the Dinei Taras Mishpacha, the laws of sexual purity, I do my best to try every year during Shovevim to, as bluntly as I can, try to talk to you in the yeshiva about some of these ideas as well as it relates to us, guys in yeshiva, in terms of our own sanctity. There are things we are mechuyev to do, things we are mechuyev to avoid, so we can avoid being hypocrites. A truly godly life requires this commitment, and it cannot be ignored, and to pretend that it's not part of Torah. Much of what I'm saying you probably know. As the Mesilat Yesharim says, the things we know best are the things we need the most review of, because they're the things that fall out of our everyday consciousness. I'm going to read some Amarei Chazal and some halachot. If you don't know them, well, hopefully now you know them. If you do know them, you're getting a chance to review them. Gemara Brachos, Daf Yud Ben Amud says, Nabraita acharei levavchem zo minut. When it says v'lo taturu acharei levavchem means heresy. Acharei einechem, the iser acharei einechem, it's a hirhur avera. That means fantasizing sexually. Shabbos Tav Samach Daled Amud Aleph. In describing the aftermath of the war of Klal Yisrael with Midian, like the Torah tells us Moshe was angry at the captains. Amar Moshe Israel. Maybe you went back and have been sexually inappropriate one more time, sleeping around with the Midianite girls. Amar Lo, not one of us. Amar Lahem, in Ken Kor Lama, then why did you bring a korban? Amar Lo, even if we didn't actually do any physical avera, we did not escape the isser of fantasizing. Why did the Jews in the desert need kapara after the war? Because they looked at women. Why did the Torah, in listing the spoils of Midian, list the tachshitim that women place over their private area along with tachshitim regular necklaces to teach you something important? Anyone who looks even at a woman's little finger, which isn't sexual, if you do it to enjoy it, it's like you looked at the Erev itself. There are 3 sins a person violates every day. Thinking inappropriately about women, you tefillah. Neither you give them with bet. Anyone who intentionally brings on fantasies about women, they don't bring him into Hashem's side of the mechitza, Hashem's side of the heavenly partition. Says Rabbi Natzon Perak Kaf. Rabbi Chanani is kind of Kohanim Omer. Anyone who puts Torah on his heart, all these things were erased from him. Anyone who doesn't put Torah in his heart, you have to worry about sword, you have to worry about thoughts of famine, about stupidity, fantasizing about women, Torah is the antidote. All these things will come if you don't learn. And listen to this color about this Parak Aleph. You intentionally go to the cashier in a supermarket with the cute kupait sitting there, the cute girl sitting there, right? You got two lines, makola, right? You got one line with the 18-year-old girl is there, and you get another line with a 72-year-old guy. Okay? What's the din if you do that? You intentionally did it because you'd rather go to the girl. Afilu gadol k'Moshe Rabbeinu shekipel Torah Sinai. Even if you're as great as Moshe Rabbeinu, lo yinakam medina shel Gehenom. You are not going to be free from the din of Gehenom. Sefer HaChinuch. It's for Kuf Pei Chet, which means you can't get enjoyment from any arise. Even if it's not involving sex, but just involving hugging and kissing. Anything similar to these things, which people who are involved in licentiousness do. This is his Isser. And he says it's mentioned twice. There are many different things which Chazal commanded in terms of making sure you don't get close. The rule is this. Should never do anything. It will cause you to fantasize about women. Not to with action, not with speech, not in flirting, only with your wife. Says the Sefer HaChinuch. Let's say you say, yeah, but these are just advice that Chazal gave us. He says you're not allowed to avoid it. Let's say he says, no. I don't have those types. I'm okay. I'm past that. Doesn't matter. I can look at women. I'm not going to wake up my Yitzhak. Why? Many people have assumed that they're beyond this Avera, and they failed. As Chazal said about this, the Yitzhak starts out very, very weak, but that's part of its plan. And it gets deeper and deeper and harder and harder, and stronger and stronger. Sefer HaChinuch and Shin Pei Zayin. And lo tu rachmei loftam efreinechem. He says, "Shelo yirdof adam achar mara einav." A person should not chase after that which is icy. Ubichlal zeh shelo yirdof achar tavad olam hazeh. A person should not go after the taivas of olam hazeh. B'davadi, no, my son, utehem marglav fumcha. You shouldn't be over and over saying in your mouth. Mashar Muzin Chalav as Chazal said, Avera Goret Avera. We saw Goret Mitzvah. One Avera brings another one. The Mitzvah brings another one. She'im Tashit Tzachadcha Lamalot Tabata Harab Pamachat. If you fail one time, you're going to fail a whole bunch of times. And if you successfully close your eyes one time, it gets easier and easier. Because taiva, physical, sexual taiva, desire, draws the flesh like wine draws an alcoholic. Someone who is an alcoholic will never be satisfied. He'll always desire it. However, he says, if you start drinking water, you can eventually calm it down. Can't as that. Every person according to what he's accustomed to, and how often you do it. We'll make it harder and harder and stronger every single day. And if he holds himself back, he will be happy in his chelik every single day. Hashem made you upright. And if people try to go to find ways to, they can do it anyway. Now, I would like to insist that you not become obsessive compulsive. And Kami says halavai, that'll be the problem, but yes, there's such a thing as unintentional thoughts. I'll tell us, yes, sometimes things are going to pop into your head. Don't become an obsessive thing. The Torah wasn't given to angels. Someone once asked me, a friend of mine, what about looking at a girl to admire her beauty, God's creation? Okay? It's a good question, right? You're not looking for a sexual reason. You're just looking because it's very, very beautiful. You're admiring God's creation. To which I say, I'm not an idiot. Okay? That's ridiculous. What are we, stupid? Of course you're looking at her because of that. You look at a guy like that? No. Come on. All right? Aside from the fact that Carlos says it's not so anyway. So even if you thought you somehow get out of it. Okay? These are not chumras. These are requirements to be karadin. Let me briefly read you a couple things from the Kitzur. Tilna's been muster. Now I get some hard halachas over here. A person is not allowed to masturbate. This is the most serious of error in the Torah. These people who actually use their hand and do this, lo dai lahem shisur gadol hu. It's not only that's a big yister, ella shosezot hu b'ni duay. Someone who does this is excommunicated from heaven. When it says in Yeshayahu Perek Aleph, your hands are filled with blood, it's talking about this. It's like you're killing a nefesh. A person's not allowed to bring himself knowingly to have an erection. Or intentionally fantasize about women. It shouldn't happen. Turn your head from that to Divrei Torah. And the thought of sex grows only in a mind that has no chachma in it. So therefore, a person, if you want to go and counteract it, he said, learning Torah is the answer. That person wants to avoid any sort of spilling seed in vain, whether it's at night or intentionally or otherwise. A person should be very careful from speaking curses, from lying, from gossip mongering, lashon hara, and from lightheartedness in an inappropriate way. And also be careful not to hear him either. A person shouldn't be overly worried. Don't fantasize. Before he goes to bed, he should learn Torah. Or you say, Prakim Tehillim, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. By the way, for those who know, on night of Yom Kippur, after Ma'ariv, we say the first 4 Prakim of Tehillim. You guys ever see that? And after Ma'ariv, the minhag gives the first 4 Prakim of Tehillim. That's because we don't want anyone to have carry to have a dream that. Because on Yom Kippur, it's an especially strong thing not to do that. Right? That's the reason why we do it. You can look more inside of this in Kufnun Aleph, if you want to read more about it. Read a little bit in Kufnun Bet. You're not allowed to be in yichud with any woman. Doesn't matter if it's Jewish, non-Jewish, old or young. Even relatives, except for a father and his daughter, a mother and her son, a husband and his wife. Isha achat mityachedim shnei anashim ksherim. A woman is allowed to be in yichud with two men. Or a man cannot be with two women. Hamechabek o menashek afilu achad min hakrovot. He says someone who hugs or kisses even Aunt Bertha. Shein lo shum hana, which you don't enjoy. Right, say so you're not allowed to. Shein krivim le'erev bakral, you can't come close to erev at all. Chutz min avim bitova, ayamim b'na, except for parents and children and grandparents. Shein mutarim v'chibuk b'nishuk. I strongly recommend on your own time, learn Simanim, Kuftan Aleph, and Kuftan Bet. It's a fun read. Now, over here I'm talking about the negative side. I also want to mention the positive side of this commitment to sneeze. The positive side is something else. First of all, might seem long way in the future now, some of you. But being careful about this kind of thing actually is a chesed you're doing to your wife. Being careful about this is actually a chesed you're doing for your future wife. A person who's been sleeping around, they can have wonderful marriages, I'm not saying otherwise, but you know what? They are creating a challenge they have to overcome in their marriage. Because when a husband and a wife are intimate, al pi halacha and al pi simple psychology, they should be thinking about each other. They should not be thinking about other people. It's the most intimate moment of their relationship. And remember, Torah, Judaism, believes very strongly in the sexual relationship between a husband and a wife. We don't believe in the idea that sex is a bid'ah, but we say it's the kachila, it's a mitzvah. Sefer Chinuch says Puravu is the reason the whole world was created, the most important mitzvah. Husband and wife having sex together is considered a mitzvah. Mitzvah's ona, even not in the context of Puravu. It's not merely a means to an end, but a chance for husband and wife to be together. And I've told some of you, Chazal want a woman to come out of Nida. The goal isn't for the time when she's in need of them to be usher. We look for ways for her to become mutter. The Ram Brachos describes David HaMelech, and it talks about why he was a chassid. And one of the suggestions about why he was a chassid was because he says he spends his time looking at various types of nida blood to matter a woman or a husband. He used to check when you go to a rav to ask about whether it's mutter or usher. He tries to matter a husband. I always notice, it doesn't say to determine whether she's mutter or usher. It says lahatir. The goal is to make her mutter. We like a husband and wife to be together. It's a good thing. We're not anti-sex. We're pro-sex, but in the right context. We're anti-doing it in a wrong context. A husband and a wife should have a wonderful sexual relationship, but if they're thinking about other people because of past experiences, that can only harm that relationship. It's a challenge to be overcome. Can it be overcome? Of course it can be overcome. But you're putting a stumbling block in your way. You are making your marriage have one more challenge that it doesn't necessarily have to have. What a wonderful thing it would be. A husband and wife are married to each other, and that's their only sexual experience with each other. They really have, they're not thinking about other people, oh, this was better than that. It's just not part of it. They're really committed to each other fully. I'll tell you something else. Being careful about these things actually makes a person more appreciative of all of us. I remember Rabbi Simkovich years ago. He's my high school teacher. Years ago, Rabbi Simkovich telling me that when he first went to Denver, he looked around. Anyone ever been to Denver? I've never been to Denver. Denver. Beautiful place apparently, right? Mountains, the Rockies, right? The first day he was there, he's looking around. Wow, look at these mountains, look at these Rockies, they're gorgeous. And the second day he was there, he said, oh my God, look at these mountains, the Rockies, it's gorgeous here. And the third day, he said, mountains. You get used to stuff, you forget about it. Strangely, staying away from something is what you learn how to appreciate it. Having it only in the right measure is actually a way to appreciate it more. And sometimes we can make fun. To be blunt, we make fun sometimes of or sort of disparage people, and maybe Meshar and whatever, who the women cover their every last inch to the top of here and down to here, and they have such everything is covered. Or, ain't nothing to look at over there, Think you know how great it would be when the husband gets home, being blunt, takes it all off. You know something? He's not used to it. For him, wouldn't it be cool if her elbow suddenly became actually, there's sensitivity to it. People say, oh, Kolisha, it's fine for me, Kolisha, because it doesn't turn me on. It's exactly, it doesn't turn you on, because you hear it all the time. You want to be turned on by it? Stop it. All of a sudden, your wife's voice eventually will be a sexual thing for you. And that's a nice thing. You appreciate it more, because you're not used to it. You know, we walk outside, we see everything. It means nothing to us anymore. For God, get turned on by his wife, who knows what they have to do, because guys see everything all the time. It's nothing anymore. It happens. That's how it works. Yeah, I'm telling you, if a person has that kind of relationship, his appreciation, his ability to enjoy his sexual life will be that much stronger. And it's all about starting now to develop that appreciation, so later on you'll earn the dividends. Another reason that's important to do this is the guy in yeshiva, you know something? It pollutes your mind, this kind of stuff. It's polluting your mind. You want to go and make sure you get every single moment out of yeshiva and get as much as you can. Well, the way to do that is to be learning Gemara or Chumash or whatever it is, to actually be learning that, not thinking about what happened last night. That's the way to do it. And of course, I said before, it's about learning to appreciate women as human beings instead of as objects. I am sure that if I asked anyone in this room, do you believe women are human beings or objects? I am sure everyone here would say human beings, of course. I would never be so offensive as to treat them like objects. Well, when you look at them like that, you're treating them like objects, of course. Just realize the inherent contradiction over there. If you truly are a liberated man who believes that women are human beings, treat them like one. Torah tells us where it all starts. It starts with the eyes. Chazal say it means like this. The eyes see, the heart wants, and then your hands do. And nowadays it's easier than ever. The click of a mouse, you can see whatever you want. You know, as a kid, you wanted to go to pornography, you had to go down to 42nd Street, the combat zone in Boston. Nowadays, you turn on your computer. There are all sorts of ways to avoid this. But well, it's just being responsible. The only way that works is for you to make a true commitment. Not lip service, but to make a true commitment to this and say, I am really not going to let myself fall. I am going to become a Torah Jew who follows all 613, not just 602 or 3, or whatever I'm going to skip on the odd. Okay, I'm going to follow even Simanim, Kupnin Out, and Kupnin Bet in the Gitzer. I'm not going to just ignore those Gemaras. I'm actually going to try not to look at women like objects. The only answer is to make a real commitment. Heard a story where a certain guy went to his Rav, a person who had made a commitment. And he said to him, he said, look, some old friends of mine are getting together for a party. He asked his Rosh Hashiva, can I go to the party? Do you mind if I go? And the Rosh Hashiva asked him, will there be girls there? He said, yeah. He says, will they be dressed in an unsuitable way? And he goes, I'm sure, but I'm past that. Made a commitment. So Rosh Hashiva said, if you're really past it, then you can go. But first I'd like you to call this number. Okay? The next day, the student came to the Rosh Hashiva and said, I'm a little confused. Who was I supposed to call? That was the emergency room. He goes, yes, I'm very, very worried about you. If you're truly over this, you must be very, very sick. He says, I'm much, much older than you, and I'm not over it yet. I think commitment means deciding right now. It means every single day of your life. You've got to make this commitment over and over again. If you're at a point in your life where you're over it, it doesn't work like that. No, you're not. Then there's something wrong with you. It's not like that. Are you committed or not? Now, one of the things I'm never afraid to do is criticizing the Haredi world when I feel it's necessary. I've never been shy about doing that. And frankly, the Haredi world, whatever that is, very often has an insane attitude towards this. Sometimes it's ridiculous. I'm not talking about the people in the burqas over there walking around B'Shemesh's bed. Even the Haredi world agrees that's crazy. I'm talking about how you go and you look in Mishpacha magazine, and they refuse to have pictures of any females, whether they're young or old. By young, I mean like they wouldn't have a picture of kids. As far as I'm concerned, is promoting pedophilia by treating a 5-year-old like she's a sexual object. I think it's insane. It's ridiculous. There's such a thing as too much of a good thing, of like not thinking. At the same time, I'm willing and equally happy, unhappy to do it, but willing to do it, to expose the centrist Orthodox world for the fact that if they care about it in an extremist type of way, very often our communities care about it not at all. There's one guy I know who said he runs a he more or less runs a local Haredi Talmud Torah for kids, and he mentioned that he mentioned the school my girls go to, Avat Yisrael, my boys go there also, which is a religious school. It's an Orthodox school. Right? It's, boys and girls are separate from Gan, so quite religious. And he described, to a different parent, the girls in that school. Oh, I can spot an Avat Yisrael girl a mile away, because they're not Sinuit. Which is, by the way, insanely offensive. They're, of course, it's Sinuit. It's ridiculous. It's a crazy thing to say. It's garbage. Trying to say, think about this school, the kids are all extremely fun. It's an insane, short-sighted, external, and Dan L'Chav Chovah thing to say. Stupid. Garbage. The point, however, is our communities in general are not as careful as the Haredi world. They're not. Well, I think the Haredi world is external and goes crazy about this stuff, and it's nuts and it's anti-Torah. Our communities are also anti-Torah because we don't care about it at all. We can't be lax about this issue anymore. If we want our community to represent what Torah really is, we have to start being careful about this. And it all comes down to making a commitment to it. Making a commitment. That means as a community, and it means everyone in this room has to make a commitment as an individual to be careful about the things we study in Shovevim, about the idea of being very, very careful at all times about the things I mentioned tonight. It means taking this issue seriously. It means deciding that Kedoshim to you is not going to be erased from my personal edition of the Torah. Say Thomas Jefferson used to, he had his own version, his own understanding of religion. He was a deist. So he took his copy of the Bible and used to cut out the things he didn't like. Seriously, it's a well-known thing. He had like his own copy of the Bible. He cut out things he didn't like. Okay, so we do the same thing. Most people in the modern culture world cut out Kedoshim too. Don't like that. We stop doing that. Okay, it's time to stop cutting out Kedoshim too. It's time to stop cutting out Siman Kufman and Kufman Bet from the Kitzur. It's all about making a commitment every single day and saying, I actually care about this issue. If you don't care about this issue, you're saying in so many words, Torah Judaism is nice in part, but not in full. If you really want to be a Torah Jew, if you want to be a Ben Torah, it means taking this issue seriously, making a commitment. Start making a commitment to do it. Take it seriously. Be careful what you look at. Be careful the way you think, which means make your life a better life. Short-term loss, long-term gain. And it's all about making a commitment. And as I conclude now, as I've said to you before, I said it last time, I know these sichot probably don't do anything for most people. And right now everyone's going to say, oh yeah, I'm going to make a commitment. Except for those who are saying that I'm an idiot. Okay, that's fine also. Whatever the reaction, as long as they have some reaction. But some of you are saying, yeah, I'll make a commitment. And tomorrow morning you'll totally forget about it because you want to go watch some movie that's rated R or whatever else. Please, don't do that. Try to keep it inside of you. Try to say, no, I'm going to be serious about this. I'm going to change. I'm going to be a kadosh. I'm going to make an effort to try and be a kadosh. I'm going to try and be the best individual Jew I can be. That involves this. You can't cut it out of your Bible. It doesn't work like that. You can't choose what part of Torah you're not going to accept. It's a whole system. And it's time to start taking these issues seriously. Make a commitment. Make a commitment. Make a commitment.